In most organizations, there are many great data sources that can be used for analysis. There are really two broad types of data sources if we think of them based on where they live. We have data sources that live in the cloud and we have data sources that live on premises. For example, for cloud data services, we can quickly and easily connect to SaaS or software as a service solution. Examples of this are connecting to your customer relationship management or CRM data in the cloud, whether that's kept in Salesforce or in Microsoft Dynamics or in some other cloud solution. To connect to MailChimp to find out about your campaigns. To connect to QuickBooks online and analyze information about your receivables or your payables. To connect to Google Analytics, Sage. There are a number of SaaS solutions and new ones are being published almost weekly by Microsoft. You can also connect to Azure, for example, to your Azure SQL Server, and analyze data that is stored there. If the information that you want to connect to doesn't already have a SaaS solution, then your IT folks or even you can create custom apps. These used to be called content packs, or even custom connections to specific types of data. On premises, your choices include your SQL data through SQL analysis services. If you have data that is in SQL Server in your organization, you can connect that to Power BI. You can also upload Excel workbooks, including Excel data models, for use with the Power BI service, as well as comma-separated values or CSV files. You can also upload files that you have created in Power BI Desktop. Now, Power BI Desktop can connect to additional data types that you cannot upload or import to the Power BI service. For example, if I needed to connect to an Access database and wanted to analyze that data, I would do that with Power BI Desktop, then connect that data model to the Power BI service. Let's go get some data. The Power BI service allows us to connect to a wide variety of cloud-based data sources. For example, if I want to choose an online service, I can click Get and open the catalog of all of the different online services that I can currently connect to. These are the apps, one after another App Figures, Azure Search, Cloud Scope for Twitter, HelpShift Bots Analysis. This list continues to grow. If I'm looking for something specific, I can enter it here. For example, I'm going to show you how I can connect to Microsoft Dynamics. I begin typing, and I'm going to connect to Sales Analytics for Dynamics 365. Simply click and choose Get It Now. If I'm going to connect to my sales data, it's going to want to make sure that I have permission to do that, so there are a number of things going on here. It wants to know what my Dynamics CRM online service looks like, and it gives me an image of that. It's https:// my company name, crm.dynamics.com. If I wanted to, I could actually fire up Dynamics and grab the URL out of the address bar. But I do know that address. And then it wants to know the last month of the fiscal year. We're on a calendar fiscal year, so that's a 12. If I needed to know more about what was being asked of me here for a connection, I can click Learn More. I'm going to actually open that in a new tab so we can see what that looks like. I'm not being asked for a lot from Dynamics 365, but there are other SaaS solutions that want more information from me. I may not have that information. I may have to go seek it out from someone else. But if I go to connect to Microsoft Dynamics CRM with Power BI, it says I connect for a sales manager or a service manager. There's more information about integration. It tells me what I need to provide, what I'll need to provide next. It says provide your credentials. But this step might be skipped if I'm already signed in. The method that I'll use is called OAuth 2. That's a good thing to know because there are other choices that also make sense to me. Notice that regardless of the system that I'm logging into, there's information. If I were going to connect to GitHub, for example, I would be asked for specific types of information. The repository owner and the repository. I'd have to authorize the application. Help is just one click away. If you need to get information rather than taking notes, simply print out that page and take it for conversation with the appropriate person, who in this case might be my Dynamics administrator. Click Next, and it is now checking to find out if this service exists and if the login that I have provided here to Power BI is the same. Notice, here's our authentication method. You might think, well, I'm just gonna use Windows. But no, I'm gonna use OAuth 2 because that's what the Learn More link told me. It is waiting for a response from Power BI. It is signing in and asking me for my login account. You may not be prompted to select an account, but because I have a number of Microsoft accounts, I am being prompted. Now note it says it's installing apps. This could take a little while. But here comes Sales Analytics for Dynamics 365 in Power BI. This connection is installed as an application. When I click, I'm actually viewing a built-in dashboard, and it will load piece by piece. There won't be a lot of compelling data here because I haven't been working this quarter in Sales Analytics. But I do have a connection because it is returning a dashboard. That is how I get data from a SaaS solution using Power BI. I'd like to connect to some data that I have on a CSV file, so I'm going to click Get Data. I'm going to click under Files the Get button, and I have a set of choices here: Local File, OneDrive for Business, OneDrive Personal, SharePoint, and learn about importing files, but I'm going to show you about that. There's a real difference between a file that's stored locally and a file that's stored in the cloud. And the difference is in the refresh. Power BI doesn't the ability to reach down to your local computer, knock on the C drive and say, "Hey, can you give me a refresh on this CSV file?" The same thing is true with network shares. Therefore, if I connect to a local data source that is on my computer or on a network share, it will not be refreshed. It's really not refreshable. The refresh method is incredibly manual. I have to delete it and get data again. On the other hand, if I'm pushing my data into cloud storage, OneDrive for Business, OneDrive Personal, or SharePoint library, then Power BI is going to be able to refresh that data source hourly. And even more frequently if there's a change in the data and Power BI is aware of it, then it will be refreshed at that time even if there's been an hourly refresh relatively recently. Therefore, I'm only going to want to connect to data that is on a local computer or in a network share if I really don't want it to be updated later. This is a data set that's not gonna to change. I don't want to refresh it. And I would encourage you, if you're not sure, to first push your file up to the cloud. To OneDrive for Business, for example, or SharePoint library if you're not sure, because the cost of needing to refresh data if you've connected to it on a local computer or network share is very high in terms of your time and your attention. Having said all that, the file that I want to connect to the example that I'm going to show you, I'm going to use a local file rather than moving it to OneDrive first. I'm sure you know how to save a file to OneDrive or to SharePoint. What I'm interested in is showing you how to connect to a CSV file. So the file that I'm going to use is in the exercise files on my desktop, chapter 2, and they're just called gdpamericas.csv. I'm going to select it and click open, and it will be imported. Says this could take a little while. It always says that it depends on the size of course of the data set, and here it comes. You may wonder, why am I seeing this dashboard? Well, that's the dashboard from the app we imported. We only have a data set here. Now the data set shows up down here, GDP Americas. And I can click on it. It also of course showed up here under data sets, and I can click on it here, or I can click on view data set. Any of those will work. And all of them are going to load the report editor here in Power BI, which we will return to after we get data. But just so you know, here's my list of fields that are from my GDP Americas CSV. So the first thing you look for is my fields list here? Is my data set listed? If I wanted to remove this data set, I could click remove here, and if I chose to schedule a refresh, you'll notice it's not enabled. Once again, this isn't a refreshable data set because it's not from a data source that is accessible all the time to Power BI like it would be if I had first saved this file in OneDrive.